The hidden power move Machiavelli understood better than most is not aggression, not charisma, not intelligence, and not even cruelty. It is controlled silence paired with deliberate distance. This is the move that quietly rearranges hierarchies without announcing itself. Most people believe power is something you demonstrate. Machiavelli saw that real power is something others feel before they can explain it. The moment you explain yourself, justify yourself, or emotionally react, you have already lowered your position. The peasant speaks to be seen. The king withholds to be measured. Human beings are intensely sensitive to hierarchy, even when they deny it. Long before logic engages, the nervous system assesses who leads and who follows, who reacts and who remains unmoved, who needs approval and who does not. Machiavelli observed that people instinctively respect those who appear self-contained. Silence signals self-sufficiency. Distance signals choice. When someone does not rush to fill space with words, the mind of the observer fills it for them. And what the mind fills with uncertainty, it often fills with authority. Most people destroy their own leverage by over-communicating. They explain intentions, defend motives, and narrate their reasoning because they believe transparency builds trust. Machiavelli knew this was naive. Transparency builds familiarity, not respect. Familiarity erodes hierarchy. When people feel they fully understand you, they stop fearing you. When fear disappears entirely, so does obedience. The hidden power move is allowing others to never be completely certain where they stand with you. Ambiguity creates attention. Attention creates caution. Caution creates compliance. This is not about being mute or cold for performance. It is about strategic restraint. The peasant reacts immediately because silence makes him anxious. He fears being misunderstood, disliked, or excluded. The king understands that reaction is a form of submission to circumstance. Whoever controls their response controls the frame. Machiavelli wrote about princes who lost power not because they were weak, but because they were too eager to reassure. Reassurance signals dependence on approval. Dependence is visible, and visibility of need invites challenge. Silence also reverses psychological pressure. When you speak too much, you are working. When you are silent, others work. They project motives, second-guess themselves, and adjust behavior in your presence. This is why calm, quiet figures often dominate rooms without effort. Their stillness becomes a mirror. Others reveal themselves through nervous speech, jokes, explanations, or over-politeness. Machiavelli would watch not what people said, but how much they felt compelled to say around power. Distance amplifies this effect. Physical distance, emotional distance, and informational distance all serve the same purpose. They elevate perceived value. Scarcity increases importance. When access to you is limited, your presence gains weight. When your attention is not freely available, it becomes something others seek to earn. The peasant is always accessible. He replies immediately, explains fully, and gives more than asked. The king is selectively present. His availability feels earned, not guaranteed. This hidden power move terrifies people without threatening them. It makes them self-regulate. They behave more carefully, speak more thoughtfully, and align themselves proactively. No command is issued, yet order emerges. Machiavelli understood that the most stable form of control is when people police themselves. Open force breeds resentment and rebellion. Silent authority breeds alignment. When people believe consequences are possible but undefined, they stay within safe boundaries on their own. The mistake most people make is trying to imitate this externally without internal discipline. They go silent but remain emotionally reactive inside. That tension leaks. True silence comes from inner control. Machiavelli emphasized mastery of the self before mastery of others. If silence is used as a tactic while fear is active underneath, it collapses under pressure. The hidden power move works only when you genuinely do not need immediate validation or resolution. Another layer of this move is selective revelation. The king does not reveal everything at once. He allows information to emerge slowly when it benefits position. The peasant dumps information to prove honesty. The king releases information to shape outcomes. This creates asymmetry. Whoever knows more has leverage. Machiavelli repeatedly warned against equalizing knowledge unnecessarily. Equality feels moral, but it weakens command. People often misinterpret this approach as manipulation. Machiavelli would respond that all social interaction already involves influence. The question is whether influence is conscious or unconscious. The peasant influences by accident and suffers consequences he does not understand. The king influences deliberately and accepts responsibility. The hidden power move does not require lying. It requires restraint. Truth delivered strategically is more powerful than truth delivered impulsively. Silence also exposes loyalty. Those who are aligned remain aligned without reassurance. Those who are opportunistic grow uncomfortable and reveal themselves. Distance filters allies from parasites. Machiavelli valued this function deeply. A ruler surrounded by constant noise cannot distinguish signal from flattery. Quiet environments make deviations visible. When you stop filling the space, others show who they are. There is also a temporal element. Time itself becomes a weapon. Delayed responses increase perceived importance. Immediate reactions flatten hierarchy. Machiavelli noticed that powerful figures often moved slower, spoke later, and decided after others exhausted themselves. Patience communicates abundance. Urgency communicates scarcity. Scarcity invites disrespect. This power move reshapes how others speak about you when you are absent. Mystery travels farther than clarity. People speculate, mythologize, and exaggerate. Your reputation grows without your participation. Machiavelli understood that reputation is not built through explanation, but through consistent, controlled behavior observed over time. Silence allows reputation to form organically. Words interfere. The peasant fears being misinterpreted. The king allows misinterpretation if it serves position. Correcting every misunderstanding is a weakness. Some misunderstandings protect you. If others overestimate your intentions or resolve, correcting them removes advantage. Machiavelli wrote that a prince should allow himself to be feared in ways that prevent challenge, even if those fears are not fully accurate. This does not mean cruelty or arrogance. It means composure. Calm is threatening to unstable systems. When chaos expects reaction and receives stillness, it recalibrates. This is why silence often escalates tension initially. People test it. They provoke. If the silence holds, hierarchy locks in. If it breaks, authority collapses. The hidden power move is subtle because it requires sacrifice. You sacrifice the pleasure of immediate expression. You sacrifice being liked by everyone. You sacrifice the illusion of equality. Most cannot sustain this. They crave connection too much. Machiavelli accepted loneliness as the cost of rule. Influence isolates. Clarity distances. The peasant avoids isolation and remains controlled. The king accepts isolation and becomes free. By mastering silence and distance, you stop negotiating your value. You stop explaining your worth. Others adjust to you. This is the inversion that defines power. The world stops asking you to justify yourself and starts asking how to align. That shift is quiet. There is no announcement. But once it happens, relationships never return to their previous balance. The third movement of Machiavelli's hidden power move is where control shifts. From external behavior management to internal belief shaping. By this stage, silence, distance, unpredictability, and emotional economy have already altered how people behave around you. Now the deeper effect begins. People start adjusting how they think about you, and eventually how they think about themselves in relation to you. This is the most durable form of control because it no longer depends on your presence. Machiavelli understood that people obey most reliably when they believe obedience is their own idea. When they internalize hierarchy as natural rather than imposed, resistance disappears. The hidden power move accomplishes this by never directly asserting dominance. Direct assertion invites comparison. Comparison invites challenge instead. Dominance is implied through contrast. Your restraint highlights others' impulsiveness. Your calm highlights others' anxiety. Your selectivity highlights others' eagerness over time. This contrast educates without instruction. The peasant tries to convince people of his value. The king allows people to discover their dependence. Discovery is always more convincing than persuasion. When people realize they adjust their behavior more around you than you adjust around them, Hierarchy becomes psychologically accepted. They may never articulate it, but they feel it. And feelings guide behavior more reliably than conscious beliefs. At this stage, expectation management becomes critical. The king never promises outcomes. He allows others to hope. Hope binds more tightly than contracts. When you promise, you become accountable. When you allow hope without commitment, others invest emotionally while you retain flexibility. Machiavelli observed that rulers who promised too much became trapped by their own words. Those who remained vague retained room to maneuver. Vagueness is often misunderstood as weakness. In reality, it is a shield. Specificity locks you into timelines, metrics, and accountability frameworks designed by others. Vagueness keeps initiative centralized. People project what they want onto you, and then work to deserve it. This is not deception. It is asymmetry. They choose effort. You choose response. Another component is controlled benevolence. Occasional generosity from a silent, distant figure has exponentially more impact than constant generosity from an accessible one. When help arrives unexpectedly and without explanation, it creates loyalty without entitlement. Machiavelli warned against habitual generosity because it trains expectation. The hidden power move replaces expectation with gratitude. Gratitude binds. Expectation demands. This is also where memory shaping begins. People remember emotional peaks, not daily interactions. By limiting your interventions to moments of consequence, you become associated with turning points. You are not remembered for routine. You are remembered for resolution. Machiavelli knew that those remembered as decisive at critical moments outlive those remembered as constantly involved. Fear also transforms here. It becomes abstract, not fear of punishment, but fear of losing alignment. People fear falling out of favor more than they fear direct reprisal. This is a sophisticated form of control because it is self-enforcing. No threat is needed. The possibility of exclusion is enough. And because you are distant, exclusion feels final, not negotiable. The peasant tries to maintain closeness to avoid conflict. The king allows distance to define boundaries. Boundaries reduce friction because they reduce negotiation. When boundaries are unclear, people test them constantly. When boundaries are implicit and firm, testing decreases. The hidden power move creates boundaries without arguments. At this level, silence becomes narrative. What you do not say is interpreted as meaning. This is why careless silence is dangerous. Machiavelli's silence was deliberate. He understood that people search for meaning relentlessly. If you remain silent without internal clarity, others will assign meanings that may harm you. But if your behavior is consistent, silence amplifies the message you want transmitted. Consistency here does not mean predictability of response, but predictability of frame. People know you value order, composure, and results. They do not know how you will express approval or displeasure in each instance. This balance keeps anxiety productive rather than paralyzing. Productive anxiety sharpens performance. Paralyzing anxiety breeds resentment. Another subtle effect emerges. People begin to compete for your attention. Scarcity creates rivalry. Rivalry increases output. Machiavelli recognized that well-managed rivalry strengthens power. As long as the ruler remains above it, the king never appears to favor rivalry openly. He simply remains selectively responsive. Others do the rest. The peasant tries to mediate conflict to be liked. The king allows low-level conflict to surface, revealing ambition and competence. He intervenes only when the structure is threatened. This restraint preserves authority and gathers intelligence simultaneously. Every conflict is data. Every reaction is information. This phase also exposes those who cannot tolerate ambiguity. Such people demand clarity, reassurance, and constant feedback. Machiavelli viewed them as liabilities in positions of power. Their neediness creates leaks. The hidden power move filters them out naturally. They drift away or self-sabotage, unable to operate without emotional certainty. There's a temptation at this stage to enjoy the power too openly. Machiavelli warned against this. Visible enjoyment of control triggers envy. Envy breeds conspiracy. The king appears indifferent to power, even as he wields it. Indifference disarms rivals. Those who seem hungry for dominance invite coalitions against them. As your influence becomes internalized by others, direct commands become unnecessary. Suggestions feel like orders, silence feels like judgment, presence feels like endorsement. You have shifted from actor to reference point. Others measure themselves against you. This is the quietest and strongest position in any hierarchy. The peasant never reaches this stage because he seeks validation externally. The king reaches it by withdrawing validation entirely. In that withdrawal, others supply their own, and once they do, control no longer requires effort. It becomes environmental. Even when you are not, deciding even when you are silent, judging even when you are gone. Machiavelli understood this as the highest form of dominance, when authority survives separation. Most people lose control the moment they step away. Systems decay, loyalty evaporates, and discipline collapses. This is because their authority was personal, not positional. They were managing behavior through presence rather than shaping belief. The king who masters the hidden power move builds expectations, norms, and fears that operate independently. He does not chase order. Order organizes itself in anticipation of him. This begins with consistency of consequence, not frequency. Consequences do not need to be common, but they must be remembered. Machiavelli emphasized that a single decisive action, correctly timed, imprints deeper than 100 small corrections. People do not need constant reminders of power. They need a clear memory that power exists and is willing to act when lines are crossed. Memory is cheaper than enforcement. At this level, you become symbolic. Your reactions are studied, recalled, and referenced. What would he think? Replaces what should I do? The psychological substitution is critical. Once people internalize your perspective, you no longer need to persuade or supervise. Their decision-making aligns preemptively. This is how rulers outlast their own reigns. Another crucial element is controlled succession of influence. Machiavelli warned that power concentrated entirely in one person dies with that person. The hidden power move includes distributing limited authority downward, without distributing full autonomy. Others act in your name, but never fully replace you. This maintains dependency while extending reach. You become the source, not the bottleneck. The peasant hoards control because he fears replacement. The king delegates strategically because he understands that delegation increases scale, without surrendering dominance. However, delegation without distance is dangerous. Delegation with distance preserves hierarchy. Those empowered still look upward for final validation. That upward glance is where authority lives. At this stage, silence becomes almost mythic. People read significance into your smallest gestures. A pause is analyzed. A glance is remembered. A delayed response is discussed. This amplification only happens when restraint has been consistent over time. Random silence does nothing. Earned silence reshapes environments. Machiavelli also understood the importance of ritualized unpredictability. While the structure remains stable, occasional unexpected actions reset complacency. Not chaos, but reminder. This prevents the system from becoming too comfortable. Comfort breeds entitlement. Entitlement breeds decay. A ruler who never disrupts patterns eventually becomes irrelevant. The hidden power move balances stability with subtle disruption. Fear here is no longer emotional. It is rational. People are not afraid of you personally. They are afraid of misalignment. This is the cleanest form of fear because it produces order without hatred. Machiavelli distinguished between being feared and being hated. Hatred mobilizes opposition. Rational fear stabilizes behavior. At this final level, moral judgments no longer touch you directly. People may disagree privately, but publicly they comply. This separation is vital. Machiavelli knew that waiting for moral approval is fatal to authority. The king does not need to be loved. He needs to be inevitable. Inevitability neutralizes dissent without confrontation. You also stop correcting narratives. Competing stories circulate about you, some flattering, some dark. You allow them to exist. Contradicting narratives create confusion among opponents and cohesion among followers. Those who benefit from alignment defend you. Those who do not are unsure how to attack. Silence lets narratives fight each other. Another transformation occurs internally. You stop seeking certainty from others. Decision-making becomes quieter, slower, heavier. You do not rush to close loops emotionally. Open loops keep others engaged. Closed loops free you. This asymmetry preserves control. Machiavelli warned that the greatest danger at this stage is self-indulgence. Power tempts expression. Expression erodes mystique. The ruler who begins to enjoy being seen loses the advantage of being unreadable. The hidden power move requires continued discipline. Authority is not a destination. It is a posture maintained through restraint. Eventually, resistance no longer presents itself directly. It appears as withdrawal, inefficiency, or subtle non-compliance. These are signals, not threats. The king addresses them structurally, not emotionally. He adjusts incentives, access, and alignment. He does not argue. Arguments equalize status. Adjustments reinforce hierarchy. By now, people no longer ask who is in charge. They behave as if it is obvious. This is the end state Machiavelli understood. When power is no longer discussed, challenged, or announced, it simply operates. The peasant never reaches this point because he confuses activity with control and visibility with importance. The king